Grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of our broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. So thank you to Chuck Commanda for providing that for us. That will be read at meetings. We'll start this with a roll call. I see a full list of council tonight. CEO Morris, can you do a roll call for staff, please?
Yes, certainly. We have a small but dedicated team of staff here with us tonight. We have a Director McMunn and Director Manhire and the omnipresent Deputy Clerk Nadine Bennett.
Thank you, CEO Morris. Our next up, we've got amendments to the agenda. I would suggest that we move 8.3, switch 8.3 and move it up to 8.1 because I can see Dan's already on the call. Do we have consensus for that? Any other amendments tonight for the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to disclosure of monetary interest. Does anyone have anything to disclose tonight? Seeing none, since this is a special committee of the whole meeting, we'll move right to priority issues. So that will bring us to floor plan approval for town hall renovations. I'll pass it over to you, Director Manhire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Much appreciated. What we're looking for tonight is just an extension of our public consultation process that we've been engaged in with the town hall design over the last period of time. So we're looking for direction from council on 3 components of the design. So it's design for the town hall floor plan, confirmation of the elevation for the council horseshoe, and then some of the room finishes that that Dan Wojcik will present in his presentation. Once we have those, we'll be able to proceed with the next steps in the development of the process. We'll have meetings with staff to confirm room setup requirements and inform the design process, because at the end of all of this, we're looking to have a tender ready package for the fall where we have cost estimates and all the design elements in place for consideration for council. So with that, Dan, if you would like to share your screen.
Sure. Thanks, Art. Honorable Mayor, councillors, town staff, members of the public, thank you again for having us at council or committee of the whole this evening. We're very excited to present the progress to date on phase 3 of the town hall renovation. And this is our 3rd presentation at council. I have a brief agenda here prepared. So we're going to talk about our progress to date, just update everybody of where we've been and where we're going. A brief overview of the feedback we received through our online survey consultation, design development. So we'll show some additional renderings of the project and the development of the design and the floor plan to date. We'll touch on schedule, and then at the very end, we'll visit what the next steps for the project are pending approval to proceed. So we're getting further down the line in terms of the project. We're making good progress on the development of the plans. You can see here in this list of items where all the presentations we've done to different municipal committees, meeting internally with Director Manhire and town staff in order to better understand the needs of the town for this phase of the project. And here, just recently, we've submitted our plans to building services and the fire department for a general overview of the project prior to proceeding to tender. And we will be meeting with them shortly to discuss any concerns they have prior to submitting for a building permit with the chief building official. We are in the process of preparing contract documents. We're about halfway through that process. And here tonight, brings us to council presentation number 3. We were able to submit an online survey that we garnered some great feedback from town residents and staff and I'm sure councillors. And some of the major points that we heard were listed below here. So the project team conducted an online public survey to gain important feedback about the project. And here's what we heard. So some of these are very familiar. We've heard them at council before, but I just wanted to reiterate them. But the council chamber and the work done there should be a place of importance in the town. Making it a multi-purpose room could diminish that there are other accessible rooms in the town that can be used. So we've understood that, you know, the desire to use the council chambers for other uses other than an EOC or town council meetings, it's maybe not the most appropriate use for this project. Some other comments we heard were modern art fixtures should be incorporated. We'll never win the heritage war, and many of the uber talented artists located in the nearby towns. So I'd like to see us invest in artists from the city for proper murals and other projects that elevate the look and feel of the town hall. So that's kind of in keeping with some of the work that we've done in phase 1 and phase 2, and I'll show you in some of the renderings, but certainly like that idea as well. Another comment we heard was, I think the town hall needs to think about being more inclusive to the folks who are blind when looking at accessibility. So that's something that we'll incorporate into our drawings as well, in terms of tactile indicators, simple things like color contrasting nosings on the stairs, and other color contrast in the design in terms of thresholds and flooring finishes, contrast between walls and floors and different surfaces. So something that we'll carry on and put into the project moving forward. Another comment we received is we want more seating, better accessibility for seniors and disabled, as well as better lighting in the project. So these are all things that we were all hitting on in our design, and we think we can achieve that comment as well. In terms of the finishes, we received some comments about the interior finishes that we're showing in our renderings. Stone and wood would be a nice nod to the natural landscape around us and the industrial past of the town. Something that we're keeping in mind as we continue to develop the finishes for the project. And as a side, a majority of the respondents requested that the project incorporate a blend of new and old design features, as opposed to something starkly modern or referential to the past. And also that we incorporate historical artifacts, photographs from Smiths Falls past, the small public meeting area, for the small public meeting areas and waiting rooms outside of the council chambers. So we've already taken some of these and incorporated them into the renderings that we'll show this evening. But we did receive a good amount of feedback. I think we had over 40 respondents to the survey, and we'll take all of the information we received into consideration. In terms of the design development of the project, we just wanted to highlight some of the design considerations, some of the key items that are incorporated into the design. And some of these come from feedback that we've received in our previous council meetings, some feedback from the Municipal Heritage Committee and the Accessibility Committee. So we want to create a fully accessible facility for councillor, staff, and members of the public, so universally accessible in every aspect of the design. Allow for equitable access to the council chambers, so that not only touches on the accessibility aspects of the elevator and a more appropriate entrance to the council chambers, but also a larger seating area in the audience for a larger complement of guests. We want to provide an accessible raised platform that does not create an imposing feeling for staff or visitors. So we heard that in our previous meetings that a slightly raised platform would be favorable to council. But we also want to avoid an inward-looking horseshoe configuration where councillors are sort of addressing one another, as opposed to being able to see each other and also see all of the people who are presenting, either the delegates that are presenting, the staff, and members of the public as well. We want to allow for clear sight lines to the audience to council, so that's what I've just touched on, and ensure adequate capacity for a larger audience as well. And certainly we are in the process of engaging an AV IT consultant to build in all of the inner workings that will be required to be able to shift the use of the council chamber from the council chamber to an emergency operations center in moments of distress. So just to revisit the plan a little bit, there's just slight changes in terms of the layout of the plan. The stairs grown slightly in order to create sort of a more accessible entrance, an easier access and staircase to gain access to the second level. On the pink, there are the corporate services offices. So we've heard some comments already about acoustics and intelligibility, so privacy concerns from the existing layout. So we're proposing to separate these offices with partitions from floor to ceiling that are acoustically insulated. We've heard some comments about the use of the common space for corporate services as well. So we'll be refining that as we move forward. Here at the entrance to the main sort of hall from phase 2, we have an accessible touch point or small desk for consulting with members of the public for different uses. As we rise to the second level, you can see an expanded council chamber with full capability for a larger audience. We have a dedicated AV/IT room here. So this is where all of the important infrastructure and hardware for a better AV system will live. An in-camera council meeting room with potential for a small lounge or a desk space for councilors to work at. At the very top of the stairs, we have this sort of bench area that's in the bump out of the front of the building, which would be a very nice opportunity for interaction and casual conversation before and after council meetings. And then a complement of a universal washroom and some other ancillary spaces for storage and cleaning uses as well. So the plan hasn't really changed dramatically, but in the background, we're working away on all of the corresponding contract documents that describe all of this stuff in a little bit more detail. So now I'm going to move on to some of the renderings of the interior spaces that some are repeated from previous presentations, but some are new. So here we have a rendering of the front entrance. When we went to accessibility committee, we were requested to change the orientation, flip the orientation of the swing of the door, which I think was an excellent suggestion from committee. Here you can see these, what we call twizzies or tactile indicator strips. These are for visually impaired people as they arrive, so that it signals the beginning and the end of the staircase. And here you see we moved the actuator for the barrier-free door operator over to the other side in order to provide sort of easier access. We've also heard comments about the look and feel of some of the railings from some of the councilors. So it's something we're looking into in order to create potentially something more cohesive with the appearance of the building. But we feel like this is a very nice way of dealing with a barrier-free accessible entrance to the building without changing the main approach to the front door. As we enter into corporate services, this is an image of potentially what the service touch point for corporate services would look like. We have a small informal waiting area and a fully accessible service desk here, where the actual level is dropped down lower in order to accommodate any visitors in a wheelchair. In the rear, there's plenty of storage planned for all of the administrative necessities for this section of the building. And as Director Manhire mentioned, we will continue our consultation with corporate services to further refine the needs and the layout of these spaces with staff. Here's a view from another direction, so you can kind of see it's just a sheltered space here. We're also anticipating continuation of some COVID protocols, so designing that into our design so that we can kind of future-proof this aspect of the building as well. And here we're just showing notionally an idea of an additional mural. We really like the fact that the history of the town is documented so thoroughly. There's so many beautiful painted photographs and different artifacts, but we did receive comment that maybe we should incorporate work of local artists as opposed to some of these heritage photos, but something that we'll work on as we move forward. But we feel like in every space we could have sort of a nod to the past of the town, where we have a very modern, accessible facility, but we're not losing sight of where we've come from. As we rise up to the second level, here's a shot of the in-camera meeting room. So just behind this individual here, there's just a slight ramp up. So this gentleman here is standing on that platform. So it's facilitating a fully accessible raised platform for the council meeting table, the council room chambers. And here we have just a small kitchenette with some storage and some amenities to facilitate meetings outside of council or related to council as well. So this this can become quite a versatile spot in the town town hall for different uses. We could see that staff could meet here, councilors could meet here with members of the public, but certainly we're trying to create a more versatile, it's a little bit more compact than what you guys already have, but certainly a versatile, flexible space with all the technology to see it as well. And we have some renderings as well as of a potential council chamber. So we heard that there was, a desire to maintain somewhat of a horseshoe shape. The current configuration of the council chamber, there's probably more than 50% of the room is dedicated to quite a large horseshoe. So what we've done is flattened it in terms of its form here. We're proposing, we have a few proposals tonight for discussion with council, but here we're proposing some stone slabs with the town logo actually CNC milled into the slab to provide this sort of very durable and dignified appearance for the rear of the council chamber. There would be lighting integrated into some recesses in this area as well. And then in this rendition, we have a newer, lighter wood paneling around the perimeter of the room. We're notionally showing location of AV/IT equipment, but we are in the process of engaging a third party to discuss the requirements with town staff in order to ensure that we're meeting all the targets and all the needs of this room, because it's not only a council chamber, but it's also going to be an emergency operations center. Ideally, we would have our podium for delegates who are presenting, and they would be able to bring potentially their own computer, plug it into a universal hub, and their presentations would be screened for members of the public. So this would be very seamless without a requirement of too much help from town staff. So certainly, this has been a challenge in the council chambers previously. There's not very much space allocated for visiting delegations. We also have additional space in the rear for staff or anybody that needs to sit at a table. And then behind that is the gallery of the audience for general members of the public. Here, we're also offering, potentially, we heard through the survey that there were some requests for sort of lighter finishes, a lighter, more airy earthen finishes. So in this rendition here, we're showing potential for sort of just a little bit of a lighter peel and look to the space, where we have less wood paneling on the wall, some lighter, more natural colors incorporated through laminate finishes or paint, but for all intents and purposes, very similar layout. And here, instead of having a stone panel at the rear of the room, we could have a solid wood panel with a CNC milled image of the town logo as well. So that's where we are in terms of the design right now. We'll seek some comments from council as we move forward. The project schedule, I'll just briefly touch on this sort of from point 10 to 15, where we can see ourselves going. So we've already finished a 66% submission for the contract documents. So that's what's been submitted to fire and the chief building official or building services for discussion. A permit submission could be pending. So we've already, like here we're saying CBO and fire, we've already started those discussions in order to mitigate any changes later in the process due to any unforeseen comments that we receive from those groups. So we're sort of ahead of the game in that stage. The next piece would be pending approval this evening to submit our 66% documents for Class A cost estimate, which we'll bring back to council, which give us an idea of better gauge on cost for this leg of the project. And then beyond that, we are prepared to kind of complete our working drawing package or contract documents by the end of this month. And that would include, as Director Manhire implied, further consultation with staff in order to make sure we're hitting all the targets in terms of the needs for each office and each space. Potentially, we'll be coming back to council at some point. I'm not sure about these dates. We'll have to align them with the schedule for council meetings, and then pending approval to proceed with costs, we would be putting this out on the market for competitive tender process sometime towards the end of the month or in November. So we say, well, renovation project will only proceed to tender pending direction from council. So there's a few more stage gates and presentations involved in this process, but tonight we're looking for consensus on the design. So the next steps are pending council's approval to proceed. The following tasks will be undertaken. Construction cost estimate, most importantly, from my perspective. The ITAV consultation is underway. Continued internal consultations with fire and building services. So we've reached out to fire and building services to establish time to meet and discuss any concerns they may have, so we can incorporate that into the drawing package. Completion of tender ready documents pending those comments and any other comments we receive from corporate services or town staff. And then a council meeting for direction to proceed to tender as well. So we're anticipating a 3-week tender period for this project. So pending approval, we would be able to put this on the market and come back to council with the results of the tender. So that takes me to the end of the presentation this evening. Thank you so much again for the opportunity to present. We're very excited to push this project into the next stage. And I'll open up the floor now for comments and questions. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dan. It's great to have you back to committee of the whole. I'm thinking, since there's so much to process here with the consensus of the committee, what if we took any comments on the outside stuff you presented, then we can move to the floor plan for the downstairs, finishes for the downstairs, and floor plan for the upstairs, finishes for the upstairs. Is that fair?
Yeah, any format that you guys like to take, please go ahead.
Okay, great. So and I can see everybody, so we can leave your screen up and go between slides if that'd be helpful. So does anybody have any comments on the outside, what's been presented tonight? Not seeing any hands. I had a few comments. One was we talked about cleaning the stone, and I think this rendering just shows how important that's going to be to clean up that white granite and really make it pop. We're still waiting to see the Church Street facade, so I know the Heritage Committee's really looking forward to what that's going to look like, and hopefully we can get that soon. And the black paint was the other thing that we talked about the last time. I'm still supportive of that. Those are my comments for the outside. Any last call for outside comments? Not seeing any. All right, so downstairs floor plan. Any comments on the downstairs floor plan? Councillor Brennan and then Councillor McKenna.
No, I like everything you presented, Dan. I just had a question about the floor plan on the downstairs, and it looks like because we have a public reception area like through the front door, and that the first phase that we've done, so people come in and then it looks like there's another one. So there's another public entrance for corporate services.
Well, so we understand that there is corporate services will engage with members of the public for certain activities, marriage licensing and
Okay.
other pieces. So this is really a administrative reception for corporate services, but in the event that there is any consultation with the public, that there is some accommodation for that to happen, so that somebody isn't just walking into an office space and not really having any kind of certainty of where they need to be. So we want to be able to accommodate that at this place. So it's quite a small portion of the plan, as you can see, but that's the intention is.
So then, and then on the sort of the other end of that, on the level one, traditionally in the past, before we've done the first renovation, people would come in the front door and then they'd have to go down the hall and around and through the door to meet the receptionist. Is that going to be a reception area, or is that not?
Well, we have one main touch point, one main reception from phase 2. So people will, what plagued traditionally, from my perspective, what plagued the town hall was that you would walk in and there would be nobody there waiting for you to guide you. So at least, for the most part, all the services will be held at the main reception desk. And then in the event that somebody has a meeting with, say, a member of corporate services or needs to engage a marriage license, that they would be directed to another.
They'd be guided.
Yeah, exactly. Also, we're showing sort of more, there's very opaque doors in between the two sections right now. So here, somebody walking down the hall will be able to catch a glimpse of the activity that's there. So it would be much easier. The wayfinding through the space should be much easier.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's good.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Councillor McKenna, then Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess this question may be more for Director Manhire or CAO Morris. Councillor Brennan's reminded us in the past, and it is important to remember, this is a very busy workplace. And so the town employees in corporate services and others are going to be working in the site. Could either Director Manhire or CAO Morris just talk about the improvements to the workspace, either through efficiencies? I'm not talking about the physical would be a big improvement because I've been in that workspace. Could you just talk about the improvements and what it might mean either to productivity, morale, general comfort, and efficiency if we invest? Because I like the floor plan, but I just want to hear, I'd like confirmation that this is indeed a superior offering than what we currently have.
So through the chair, we are actually, the office in the top right or the top left corner as an example is currently a former cell that was when it was a police station. So that's currently used for files, and we're looking to take that out. All along through this process, we've been focusing on energy efficiency, on better heat, better lighting, better sound barrier, as Dan indicated earlier. Where currently the ceiling height is low, and then there's an open ceiling above, which and this area houses corporate services as well as HR services. So providing them with a better space for that, something that is more energy efficient, but also more efficient in terms of energy for heat and cooling and privacy. So that's really where we're going with this. It's going to be similar to the office spaces that we created in phase 1 and phase 2. So we want that similar type of design, which allows for more light as well, so that it's not something where people feel as though they're in a closet doing their work, that there will be kind of an open space with natural light as well as internal lighting. So those are the pieces that we're trying to incorporate into those spaces to make it a better workspace for people. And as you indicated, more productive in terms of working there. So the meeting space outside of those is an indication of that as well, so that people can actually, when they do need to get together with more than one other person or 2 other people in their office, we can use that common space to do that. And we have that in the economic development area as well as in phase 2.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Is that good for your questions? All right, so we'll have Councillor Allen, then Councillor Alford.
My question is about that center room, the one that's in gold, common office meeting space. I love the idea of having a large space where a number of staff, especially if they're meeting about a specific event or there's maybe something happening in their department, the whole department can sit around a table. I think that's a great asset. And I don't think we have that in that area now. My question, I guess, is that one whole room or is it divided into 2 rooms? It's hard to tell on the...
Yeah, so these dash lines are structural grid lines for the building. So this is just one space here.
One large room.
Yeah, there is a demising wall for this kind of administrative function space where there's like a photocopier, file storage. But
I think that's a great use of space. The other question I had was in regards to the green room at the opening, the door opening. You were saying a staff person would communicate with citizens there. Is that what you were telling us?
Potentially, that there is an accommodation for administrative staff and corporate services. So there are only very discrete moments when public would be in this space, which I think one of them is a marriage license, and there's some others. But we wanted to have an accessible accommodation at that touch point, whether it be.
That's a great idea, a great asset. I just wonder how that's different than the other beginning outside in the main hallway. We have Ellen there now greeting citizens. How is that different?
Well, I think, like I mentioned before, Ellen will be guiding people to the different sections of the building as where they need to be.
So she's just going to send people places.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we still need to, we still have a further consultation with corporate service staff to go over the sort of finer details of how these pieces are going to be working. So we've already received a few comments about we need accommodations for more files behind this desk. So you'll see subtle changes to this, but yeah.
No, I love that. I love the accessible desk. My last question about that floor is that carpeting, that sort of multicolored grays?
Oh, sorry.
Carpeting?
Yeah, so this would be like a modular carpet tile product, and then wherever we have high traffic, we would have a porcelain ceramic tile to match the corridor, so that we kind of start to bring these places.
So they're both tile.
Yeah,
Just
so
a
we have an existing tile in the corridor from phase 2, and we'd like to pull that into phase.
I'm just
3.
wondering why we would have two different kinds of tile in the same room.
Oh, sorry, this is carpet tile. So yeah, it's carpet, so that it's just a little bit quieter under the feet. It provides a little bit of acoustic benefit as well, more absorption, less reflection. But like Director Manhire said, the finishes are sort of up for discussion tonight.
Yeah, no, it's not. I don't like that look. I think it's busy. It takes away from the rest of the, but again, that's what I think.
Okay, I appreciate that. And as we continue to develop our designs, I think we're trying to tie the different phases together. You know, they've all happened over many years, but we want to have some continuity in terms of the appearance of the spaces. So this product is only representative. We have a product that we used in phase 2, which is actually a very durable product. It's a little bit different color. It has a little bit of a pattern in it, so that if it does get stained, or you can't actually, you can't really tell. And the tile aspect of it means that if it's damaged, we can, instead of having to kind of repair it, you can remove one piece and replace it. So that's why we like to use that product in offices.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Allen. Councillor Alford.
Just mainly one comment with regard to the floor plan for the first floor, and that is, does staff like it? Is it functional for staff? Is it what staff want? They spend most of the time in there, and so that would be the most important question I would want the answer to, is to make sure that they are comfortable and like what the surroundings they're going to be in for the next who knows how long. I would also say I'm not a fan of carpet anywhere in the town hall, but I can see, as Dan says, there is, if it is a carpet tile that is easily fixable if one is damaged, but it also does help dampen sound and warm up the space. Particularly the finishes can make a room cold or seem cold, utilitarian, and a carpet tile well done could maybe alleviate that. I'll reserve other comments for when we get to the second floor though, Mr. Chair.
CO Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just in response to Councillor Alford's insightful question, what I can say in response is that there's been an abundance of consultation with staff on the layout, and as Dan indicated, we're looking at some of the finer details right now, but I would say with confidence that there's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of input, so people have had an opportunity to contribute to their new workspace, and on that level, I think it will, to respond to an early question, it will contribute to better conditions for working, and eventually I think morale as well. It's going to be a very, very pleasant place to work.
Thank you, Malcolm.
We've got Mayor Panko next.
Thanks, Dan. Can you confirm that the entrance to corporate services from the main foyer is fully accessible and automated?
Yep. Yes, it is. Yeah, it'll be accessible entrance. And that is mostly to serve corporate services as they ascend to go to council meetings. We needed access so that you don't have to walk all the way around the building. We don't see that being a sort of primary entrance for members of the public, but it will be accessible for any staff that has accessibility needs.
And secondly, I guess there seems to be probably a lot less storage here than what would be available today. I don't know if it's all being used today, but a lot more space dedicated to storage. And is that just a reflection? I assume staff have indicated that this is a better use of the space than what is being used currently.
Yeah, so we've consulted with staff. There seems to be some redundant filing that we may not be needed anymore, and we can solve some of the storage issues through furniture solutions that we will incorporate to the project. But I mean, that is a good comment. We have less storage in order to accommodate other functions in the space, but we do have an opportunity to build some back in if that's something that we receive in the next round of comments.
Well, thank you. Overall, I like the floor plan. I think it makes much better use of the space, and especially on, I guess, the north side, where we've really got one fully practical office there now, and we'll end up with 3 accommodating 4 people. So I'm supportive of this part of the concept.
Thank you.
Mayor Panko, seeing no other comments, I'll add mine. The open meeting room downstairs, I like that space is being used, but I have concerns with if it's going to be disruptive to staff and anybody that's going to have to go to Director of Corporate Services or the clerk at CAO's office is going to disrupt the meeting walking by. And any meeting that happens there is essentially going to be open to any members of the public that are sitting in those chairs by the that are shown in the rendering by the front desk. So I'm wondering if there's a way to glass that in or give some privacy there. So if you're having a meeting, you're having a meeting instead of having it for the whole office kind of thing. Is that something that's possible, or?
It's something that we can look into. I think we'll carry that comment forward to our next meeting with staff to see if that's a concern that they'd like us to mitigate. There's a few ways that we could do it architecturally, so I think that's a good comment, and we'll ask staff if that's a concern that they have.
Okay, great. Any comments on the finishes? We talked a little bit about the carpeting. Was there a consensus for a less busy carpet or a different type of carpet, or nothing from that? Councillor Allen? Straw vote here. Is there any other concerns about the carpet? Not seeing any. All right, so we will move on to the upstairs floor plan. Please, Dan.
And just on that note, I'd like to say that we can prepare a material finish board, sample material finish board that we can deliver to town hall once we're a little bit further down the line, so that you can make reference to the materials, and also you can see the finish of the actual materials themselves on a board. It's a little bit more helpful than digital rendering.
Yeah, that'd be great to help picture it and maybe get something that'll suit the space very well. Councillor Dwyer, you've got comments for the upstairs floor plan.
I do, thank you, Councillor McGuire. I only have 2. Dan, I know you're just getting to the point of consulting with the IT experts on logistics upstairs, but is there any possibility that we could look at moving the IT AV room over to the I'll call it the closet that's next to the accessible washroom to free up a little bit more space for that in-camera multi-purpose meeting room? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to accommodate it someplace for a custodian cleaning products, which is something that we're missing here. But we could flip those. We've also received a comment offline that if we relocated this door further down the hallway, that we could have a less obstructed entrance into the meeting room. we could, but we need to further assess what the requirements are with the third-party IT consultant in order to figure out exactly how much space is required. But we'll take that into consideration, Councillor Roy.
Okay, for sure. And I should say by flip, I meant get rid of the second closet and turn it into an AV closet so that we just have more space for a meeting room. But if that's not possible, I get that. Otherwise, I think this design's great. I think it reflects everything that we had talked about in earlier meetings. And I think you've done a great job at capturing that. You had asked specifically for council feedback on which of the two options we had a preference for. My preference is option 1, but I think option 2 has merit as well. It really becomes an aesthetic preference of the individual. So mine's option 1, but the will of council will prevail.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Dwyer. Let's keep this discussion just to the upstairs floor plan, and then we'll move on to the finishes, just so my notes can stay clear here. We've got Mayor Panko, Councillor Brennan, and then Councillor McKenna. Councillor Allen.
Actually, I believe Councillor Brennan was ahead of me.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Brennan.
Okay, it doesn't matter really, but that's okay. Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I'll speak to the finish. I mean, anyway, it's subjective. Just a couple of questions on the floor plan for the second level, and I like the design overall. Just sort of technical. One is the meeting room will have technical capabilities, i.e. the same thing as the council chambers.
Yeah, we're yet to understand exactly what those capabilities are required to be, but we're certainly on the right path to figuring that out, and we will ensure that fire and corporate services and council are well informed as to what those are.
Yeah. It's the same as the room next door, so it shouldn't be a big deal, I don't think. The other one is in the chambers. Do you have a provision for media in the chambers?
Yeah, so here we have some desk space available for delegates or media, and then there's certainly accommodation. Like, this is all loose furniture here. We'd like to be able to unplug the podium from what we call a floor monument that has data and power, so that this is actually also a movable piece. And then in the event that you have a very potentially contentious or popular event at council, that there would be accommodation for media for sure.
Yeah, well, it would be. I think that's important to have just a desk for them.
Yeah.
Other than that, the design is great, and I'll speak to the finishes after, I guess. So.
Thank you.
Great, Mayor Panko.
Dan, just want to focus on the in-camera meeting room.
Yep.
And there are times when we have an in-camera meeting, we may have 2 or 3 staff, potentially a delegate, and the current layout doesn't accommodate that very well, especially with 7 members of council and the clerk. We would occupy the table with room for 8 people. So I guess a couple of questions. One, could that room be widened just at that end? In other words, maybe take 1 row of seating out of the council chambers in order to create a wider space to allow for a little more, a larger table, more people at the table, or going the longer table in there. What is the overall width of the room? Seems fairly narrow. So in other words, it would be hard for people to get around people sitting in chairs, or is there plenty of space, people back the chair up and get in and out?
Yeah, so we definitely can accommodate a wider room, potentially without even deleting any of the audience space. Like I mentioned, we're sort of maybe going to reconfigure this entrance so that when the doors open, it's not conflicting with the path of travel. We provide a barrier-free path of travel around the room. These chairs are shown as sort of totally pulled out from the desk. But I understand the concern about the length of the furniture, so that I think if we can reconfigure the space as per your comment, we could have a much longer table in the space.
And I think suitable AV as well in there, so probably a screen in there for presentations as well, I would hope.
Yes, of course, yeah. We could have a wall-mounted screen that could swing out so that everybody at the table could see it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Panko. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Chair McGuire. I like the layout. I think the earlier comments are helpful. My comment was around and I don't know if this is finishing or not, but embedding the town logo in some piece of granite or stone up on the wall doesn't really appeal to me, because about every 15 years or so, a town will change its logo, or maybe not as often. So I would prefer that we don't date ourselves with that. I think something just says Smith Falls. That's just my only comment. I like the layout. I see we've got about access for 40 members of the public, which is terrific if everybody takes a chair. And yeah, I'm overall very pleased. Thank you.
Thank you. That's an excellent comment about the logo. We really like the new town logo. I know that there's a lot of thought and effort that went into it, so we were really enamored by it. But you're right, times change, councils change, and opinions and logos change. So oftentimes, instead of maybe milling it into a piece of stone, which is very permanent, we can create a logo that can be taken off and replaced at a later date. So stand off or some sort of finish that would accommodate that.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Councillor Allen.
Yeah, I like the layout as well. I particularly like that there are more seats for citizens. I know that over the years, we don't always have a full house, but when we do, oftentimes people are standing. So having more seating space is great. I love that we have accessible seating as well. From the very beginning, I wanted to keep our horseshoe. I think I was probably the only one, but so I'm just bringing that up because I still think it's the better choice. But at any rate, I hope, or I would like to get my colleagues to agree that some of the wood that's in that room right now has been there since the building was begun many years ago, and it's beautiful. I'm talking about what I call a handrail. I'm not sure if that's the technical word, but all the way up the stairs, there's a rail that goes up that's beautiful, rich, dark wood. And then that's carried out through the whole chamber at the edge just before the bottom and top, which I think I would really like to keep some of that. The Municipal Heritage Committee spoke to it, and they also spoke to having the inside of the windows seen. They're going to be replaced with heritage windows. The other thing, I much prefer the color of the rich wood that's in the room right now to the very light woods in both pictures. And I like the furniture that's there. I think it suits the chairs that the citizens sit in are beautiful old chairs. They're in excellent condition. And I look at them compared to the chairs there now, and I'd much rather sit for 2 hours in them. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
On Councillor Alfred.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm overall happy with the floor plan for the second. I agree with Councillor Dwyer and Mayor Panko that if we can get some more room in the in-camera room, that would be best. But again, I think my colleagues will agree. We were just happy to have actual chairs in there that we could all sit in, and there would be enough chairs for all of us when we go into that room. I can't see them, but I'm pretty sure they're all shaking their head about that. No, overall, I think it's fine. I think it's what we had hoped it would be. Councillor Allen's, I think if there is an opportunity to save some of the darker, richer wood in maybe the little seating place or somewhere we could reuse some of that older wood, and there's an opportunity to do that, I would like to see it. I we're not talking about the finishes yet, so I was reserving some of my, or Mr. Chair, do you want me to go ahead with my talk about finishes?
Let's finish the floor plan and then move to finishes, just because I think it's going to get.
No, that's fine. Overall, I think you've done a great job. I would like a little more space if we can flip those closets or get some more space in the in-camera room.
Certainly, yeah, and our team has surveyed the existing council chambers. There's certain elements of the council chambers that are hardwood, like a solid wood product, and then there's some other paneling that's a veneer core chipboard. So in the terms of dismantling that could be challenging. It could get damaged along the way, but I certainly like the idea of recycling and not sending building waste to landfill, and we'll pursue that wherever we can. It would be nice if we could even incorporate some of that finish on the first level or in the lobby on the first level as just a nod to the past and what was there, and people would be able to recognize that. So it's something that we'll consider and try to implement moving forward.
Good, thank you.
Thanks. I definitely agree with the consensus. I'm hearing that we need a bigger in-camera meeting room. One thing I remember in the last discussion, we talked about having that desk for councillors to work at as primarily a meeting place to meet people that was in the town hall. But I'm wondering if we're going to make that table longer and that door is going to be moved. Maybe sitting around that table would be the best place to meet people. And if we remove that desk, it would add some more space. Is there strong feelings on keeping that desk or getting rid of it? I don't see any. So look, Councillor Alford.
No, I'd be prepared to exchange that small desk that's not used by many of us very often for a bigger meeting space in camera, because we do have staff and it does get very crowded, and chairs. I want to mention the chairs again.
Great. So I see consensus for that. I think moving the AV room to that storage room would be a great idea if it's feasible, especially when there's a lift. So a custodial cart could come up that way. And there's so much storage on the main floor now. My only question is there's 9 seats around the horseshoe and we currently have 11. So I'm just wondering, out of the 11 that currently sit there, who isn't going to be included, or how's that going to work?
Well, some of staff will be located in the audience at the tables, but we can modify the council, the shape of this table in order to accommodate more staff as well, if that's a request.
Mayor Panko, you have a comment?
Well, yeah, I guess we would obviously need the clerk and CAO, and then we also have student counselors, which have not been here during COVID, or not in person anyway, right? So there's 11 right there if we continue on with that program.
Okay, we can accommodate that. I think with the revisions that we've heard requested for the in-camera room, we'll have to sort of take a look at this whole end of the building here and see how we can accommodate additional space.
Great. Councillor Dwyer and Councillor McKenna.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I'm easy on floor plan and finishes on this. I will say though, I mean, maybe it's time we think about conducting business differently. You know, as much as we've established a routine where we meet in a certain way, we meet and interact with staff in a certain way. Maybe it doesn't have to be that way. You know, if 11 seats is the best we can do in that configuration, and we put value on the configuration of the horseshoe, then perhaps it's a matter of staff not sitting with us at the horseshoe. You know, when you look around at the configuration of other municipal councils, it's not always a place for a CAO or directors. We have previously had directors up at the horseshoe. You know, I'm flexible. If the best we can do is 11 seats, and that includes 7 counselors and 2 student counselors, then that's all we got.
Thank you. And on that, that's a really good point, Councillor Dwyer, and the AV consultant that we are proposing to engage. It's called Combatech. We worked with them for the county council chambers for the county of Renfrew. they completed the Whitewater Council chambers, and they're completing a series of council chamber renewals in terms of the AVIT, because we all know that just as we're meeting now digitally, the way that we work is kind of very changed in the past 2 years. So we're engaging an expert who's helped many municipalities and towns and townships in the valley fully kind of flip the way that they work in order to accommodate digital meetings, which I think will be with us for well into the future. But to have that capacity to pivot and change the way we work just with the flip of a switch will be a huge asset to the town.
Councillor Alford? No, okay. Or sorry, was it Councillor McKenna?
If I may, Mr. Chair, thank you. Just on your comment about the ease of moving a cart up and down the elevator, it's not as practical as that. People who clean need access to water and dumping pails of water, and you need a proper janitorial closet somewhere on that floor. It's not practical to properly clean a space that large by trucking the materials up and down. So I think we have to find a way to accommodate that. I've seen it in the past where they underestimate the value of that. And so I wanted to say that. And the other is, and I guess we're into not finishing, but some of the IT comments. Mayor Panko and I attended the last county council meeting. They started in-person meetings, and the mayor and I attended by Zoom. And it was, we were at a large disadvantage. And I know we've talked about in the future, I don't think we've confirmed that, but a council member who couldn't make it in person may be able to join. That accommodation needs to be very carefully thought through, because it simply didn't work at the county. And so I said I would just come in person to all future meetings that they're going to be in person, because unless we can figure out a way to properly include people via electronic means into a live face-to-face meeting, it can be quite disruptive. So I hope that there is a solution to that. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I think every solution is tailor-made. So that solution was certainly kind of thought out between the Director of Property and Services and some of the county staff, but the needs for town of Smith Falls will be unique, and based on your experience, we can mitigate those concerns.
Great. So seeing no further questions on the floor plan, I think we've had a really good discussion so far. Councillor Alford?
I'm just getting ready for my comments on the interior.
You're first in the queue. Dan, as we move on, I think you've got two options for us tonight. Maybe it'd be helpful if we started with a straw vote for option 1 and option 2, and then that would help focus our conversation. Or are people hoping to have a discussion first? Not seeing any feedback. So this would be option 1, I believe, right, Dan? And then maybe could you flip to option 2? So those are the two options. I know Councillor Dwyer is in favor of option 1. I'm also in favor of option 1. Everybody looks like they're in favor of option 1. So we'll focus our comments on option 1 tonight. Councillor Alford, you're first up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I do like the look of option 1 first, and I would, Councillor McKenna has already covered etching into stone, and that logo can change, and we don't want to limit ourselves. But I do like the stone. It gives a weight to the chambers. I also, with regard to window coverings, most of us have been blinded at times in council chambers. So if we could have appropriate window coverings, I'm going to leave the decision on the height of the chamber or of the council table, the horseshoe, to whatever is appropriate for the people in the back row of the audience to be able to see. I don't know how many inches that is, but I'm sure the engineers and experts can tell us that. I don't really have any other comments. I'm excited to see it. I don't mind the lighter look of it than the darker wood that we've had. While it is precious and beautiful, it isn't, it's somewhat imposing, I think, never mind for council, but for the people who enter as well. And again, I would mention the chairs. And the only other thing I wanted to bring to Dan's attention or someone's attention is I don't see in any of the AV or we haven't talked about what security is available or what plans for security there are for these chambers. In an increasingly weird world, I think it's something that that we should give some thought to. And I don't know how that would play out, but I have been in chambers, not this term, but I have previously been in chambers where it was, the police station isn't downstairs anymore. And so I would like some little bit of attention paid or some thought given to security for the chambers. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Alford. Councillor Brennan.
Thanks. No, I like the stone and the finishing. I mean, we talked about art and stuff. I think that's subjective, and we can tackle that later. I don't want to talk about what pieces of art are going up or anything like that. The only question is the flooring. Is that carpet?
Yeah, we're showing carpet here as well. The pattern is not necessarily representative of the carpet that we'll be using for the project. But I think it's important that we have carpet in this room, especially because if anybody's moving around or dragging a chair for presentation, it will sort of mitigate all of that noise that would be disruptive.
Yeah, so the carpet that is there now is beautiful. Joking. So I would think that I think we talked about this a few minutes ago. The carpet there it will be durable and actually replaceable in pieces if need be. So I'm fine with that. I like the design. The chairs are a little cold. I have to agree with my colleague, Councillor Allen, but you know, that's all stuff that can be worked out. But the design itself is good. And I like the height of the ceiling and the way the AV is presented here. So good job. I actually, with all this stuff, you've checked all the boxes. We talked about the design considerations at the first of the presentation. You've checked all those boxes. And I think it's time to get going. So good job.
You touched on a very important point about the ceiling height here. We're much taller than what's in the council chamber currently, or at least in the in-camera rooms. There's such a low drop ceiling with a huge 6-foot cavity. So here we're really gaining some height, and it's going to make this space feel, I think, more impressive.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Brennan, and Mayor Panko, then Councillor McKenna.
Yeah, I agree with the stone wall. I think that adds a real nice touch of class and something that hopefully will be there for the next 100 years. I agree with utilizing the available height. I'm wondering, I assume you have, but just having considered acoustics when it comes to the room and the delivery of sound throughout the room.
Yeah, certainly. So we have an acoustic ceiling product look in this sort of white region here. So this is a noise reduction measure. And then behind this architectural wood ceiling, we're proposing to add some sort of acoustic treatment as well, so that noise is not sort of reverberating all over the place. In certain instances as well, we can have sort of different shapes of wood paneling. Certainly flat, hard surfaces are not necessarily favorable for acoustics, so that's why we're showing sort of a softer carpet tile. But that's something that we we'll take into consideration, careful consideration, can report on next time we come back to council about the mitigating strategies for acoustics.
Okay, and then my final comment here, I think, is from a finish standpoint, I do lean towards the existing finish of the walls, the wood panel walls. I like it a little bit darker than maybe what's illustrated here, but I'm agreeable to whatever council comes up with. And finally, hopefully we can reclaim and reuse much of the wood that we have in there now, and whether that be used here or used elsewhere in the renovation. I think just important we try and preserve that.
Well noted. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Panko. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's about the horseshoe itself. There's no egress from the gallery onto the horseshoe that I could make out in the design. There's the only
good catch. Yeah, sorry. We're incorporating. It's going to be a door in the millwork here, so that you'll be able to pass. So you don't have to walk all the way around in order to get access to the gallery.
Well, often before council meetings or after, we're down in the gallery talking to people, and then we can just go straight back up. Also, for you'd want to have more exits than. So that's great that you've thought of that. Just the chairs have come up a couple of times. I just want to remind us that this room is meant to be really versatile, and that we could pick up a chair, stack them, and put them somewhere out of the way so that we can use it for. And the chairs that we currently have, one, they're very, very heavy, and two, they are very, very hard on the rear end. So I don't like going. I like the versatility of the new products, and sure, I'm all in favor of recycling some good finishing out of the current chambers, but I want to see this new modern. I love the look of this. I don't want to bring in a bunch of dark and bring in old furniture that we've had from before. So it would be too much of a contrast for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll echo Councillor McKenna's comments. My preference would be for a lighter, more modern kind of Scandinavian looking wood than the, don't know what to call the current color theme, 70s throwback, except it's not a throwback because it's been there since then. Yeah, I mean, I think a neutral color palette regardless is positive, and I think that's really what you're showcasing here anyways. But I think a lighter wood the better, and if we don't like it down the line, we can always paint it or restain it, I assume. And Dan, maybe that's a question. I assume this is actual wood laminate, like it's something that we could restain in the future.
Yeah, so this will be a real wood veneer product. We understand that kind of sensitivity to the previous materials, and the will to sort of have some continuity in terms of a dignified interior. But like you mentioned, we're trying to implement sort of more contemporary finishes. So while we can use wood, personally, as an architect, I feel that, this should be a reflection of the next 20 years, not the past 20 years, or 30 years, 40 years. But like I said, we'll be able to offer some actual physical samples of these wood products and different stone and countertops and all of that at just a little bit later stage of the project. But I appreciate your comments. Thank you, Councillor Dwyer.
The only other thing I'll say is that I have to keep reminding myself that, as much as we have concerns with the existing features of our space, that they are almost 50 years old. I have concerns with carpet and dirt tracking through carpet. And, if you drop food, there's no such thing as the 5-second rule at Town Hall. But I think that's more an indication of how the building has been kept and cared for, and the length of time that those elements have been in place. So I'm going to set those reservations aside in favor of kind of a newer, cleaner design. But I think it's great. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Yeah, and just to touch on the carpet product that we're using, the one that we used in phase 2 has sort of almost a hydrophobic quality to it, so that when you drop water on it, it actually beads, can be easily cleaned. And it's actually intended for use in high traffic areas like high schools, or airports, or shopping malls. So we're trying to pick products that will have a very long lifespan, and that, you know, that plays into the sustainability of a project as well. It's not just the building systems, but also the selections of materials.
Mr. Chair, through you to Dan, I can assure you that the carpet up there right now has no hydrophobic qualities to it. It absorbs things like a sponge.
It's also taped to the floor in certain areas, so we're going to improve on that for sure.
Great, thanks, Councillor Dwyer. I'm hearing some people would like a richer color for the wood, other people would like lighter. Is that something you need direction on tonight, Dan?
I don't think so. I think we'll bring some physical samples back to the table. Renderings are oftentimes representative or, you know, deceiving in a way, because they are not necessarily reflective of an actual product. So I'd like to have a material sample board, so that everybody can correlate materials to the rendering and have a full understanding of what those are.
Great. All right. I'm just going to chime in, or Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just practically speaking, one is that I'm terrified of council members starting to get into the touch and the feel of some of the products, and we'd be all over the map. And two, I would assume we would set it up somewhere. We would go in at our leisure, maybe tick a box or something. It wouldn't be anything we could do around this a cow or council meeting. It would be, we would go in, have a look, maybe jot down our comments, and then submit them.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, it wouldn't be a point blank question on the spot, and you want to give people an opportunity to just be able to actually have some sort of physical interface with the product and just provide comments. I don't think we're not going to be looking for sort of a democratic vote on the finishes, but comments so that we can react to them. Certainly would be very helpful.
And just finally, the finish of the stone is there may be a producer in Lanark County that could provide, rather than Italian granite or something from the US, if we could source that locally, it would mean more to me than a lot of other things. So it's just a thought. Thank you.
Great idea, and we'll pursue that for sure. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Councillor McKenna. Yeah, I think it'd be really cool if we could use the sandstone or the limestone from the Rideau Canal or something from around here that really gives meaning to it. I love the idea of the etching, but I'm thinking I definitely agree with the logo comments. So we've got a town coat of arms that is pretty timeless. I don't know if it's changed since the beginning. Maybe that's something we could put in back there, and that would last as long as this council chamber will last. I note the comments on the acoustics. I think it'd be really increase the presence and elevate the presence of the space if there was raised wood paneling, and if that's going to help with the acoustics, that'd be great. I think trimmer on the windows would just give it a little bit better look too, or some crown moldings around the top. I think that the carpet's going to be a huge improvement. I'm excited for that. We'll see what it looks like. And I think all my other comments have been addressed by the rest of council. So just to confirm for the minutes, everyone, there's consensus for option 1, and the further design feedback will be taken offline and provided that way. Are there any final comments before we let Dan go for the evening? Mayor Panko.
Yeah, Dan, I think the last time you were in, I had asked you about our heating and cooling and use of maybe air source heat pumps in contrast to natural gas. And I mean, we made a commitment to Partners for Climate Protection. We're trying to do what we can to minimize our corporate carbon footprint. And wonder if we had a chance to research that and how far along we are with our heating and cooling systems.
So we just received our preliminary design for the air handling units that are located on the roof. Now that we're discussing this, one of my objectives is to kind of locate them in an area where you can't actually see them from the council chamber, because as you'll know, when you look out at the current in-council meeting room, you see some mechanical equipment. We're trying to shield that. As it is today, we're proposing a controls package on a fuel-fired rooftop unit in order to maintain what we already have, like the source of energy that is supplying heat and heating and cooling to the town hall as it is today. But we can certainly provide more detail. We're just reviewing that with mechanical engineers right now in order to see how much more we can add to these rooftop unit packages to make them more efficient in terms of heat recovery. We're pursuing heat recovery from exhaust fans in the washrooms. So that means that we're recycling existing heat from the bathroom in order to offset the operating costs. But we could look at, we have limited options in this instance, where we have either fuel-fired rooftop unit or electrified rooftop unit. One will provide a tremendous amount of cost savings, and the other will reduce the greenhouse gas emissions for the town. So this is something that we'll pursue and continue to look into more detail with Director Manhire, who can report back on the outcome of that. But I appreciate that comment, and I mean that's always at the forefront of our mind as well as we develop these systems.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Yeah, you'll really see a reduction in the operating cost for this building, because as it stands today, there's no insulation in the ceiling. So all of that heat that we're pumping into the council chamber right now and into the in-camera room are just going straight through to the roof. So there'll certainly be a much more efficient building, especially with the new windows as well.
Yeah, I mean, I said I obviously still, if the more we can move away from carbon burning fuels, in my mind, the better we are doing our part.
Yeah, and as a separate project, not under the scope, the town, Director Manhire and I have always discussed the massive rooftop space that is available above town hall. We're seeing more initiatives on a municipal level to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and keeping with provincial and federal initiatives. So there's always an opportunity to convert and offset through a separate capital project.
And some grants available, I think, in the near future. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Last call for any questions, comments. Seeing none, thank you very much for joining us tonight, Dan. Thank you, Director Manhire, Councillor Brennan.
Sorry about that. Just to be clear, I'm super excited. So the next steps, Dan, we can just go through those again, maybe. We're looking hopefully to go to tender in the next month or so.
Yes. So
Perfect.
we'll submitted our package for construction cost estimating. So that our next touch point with council will be the budget implication for the project, and a review of all of the material that we discussed this evening, with the recommendation or soliciting some sort of input to proceed to a 3-week tender period.
Great. Thanks for that.
Great. So yeah, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Director Manhire. We look forward to seeing this moving forward in the near future.
Thank you very much, everyone. It was a pleasure speaking and presenting this evening, and wish all a nice evening.
Have a good night, Dan.
Thank you.
So now we will move on to our new 8.2 reconstruction of Wood Avenue storm and roadway elements report with Director McMunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the report comes as a result. We know that we presented this report back on September 30th at Committee of the Whole, and the committee members asked for staff to bring back, to kind of take the report back and have another look at it with respect to the drainage areas and see if there was anything that perhaps was missed. What hasn't changed is the recommendations of the report. So we're looking to for council to approve an exemption to the existing procurement bylaw that we have to allow council to sole source this work to Campbell Trucking Incorporated for works to complete the reconstruction of Wood Avenue storm sewers and roadway elements. And then for council to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute that agreement with Campbell's Trucking in the amount of $655,251.36, and that includes the town's portion of net HST. And furthermore, that the council pre-approve a 2022 budget expenditure of $655,000 and change. This work is not currently budgeted for the 2022 budget, so that's why that's in there. So we're looking for council to pre-approve that budget element. And going back to the second part, the amount of $655,000, where that's changed from the report that we brought on September 30th, that amount actually went down for the town's portion to the tune of about $35,000. Why that is, if you're to draw your attention to Appendix 1 of the report, you'll notice that the areas D, E, F, and G now have a red line towards the south of that, those drainage areas. So what that red line represents is those lots on that side of Wood Avenue actually have split drainage. And what that means is a portion of the stormwater that lands on those properties, a portion of it goes to the front, a portion of it goes to the back. So that red area is representative of water going to the southerly lands. So that benefited the town. That was an exercise at WSP. The developer's consultant re-looked at the drainage areas and agreed, as did the developer, that that was respective of what those drainage areas should have been in the first place. So effectively what that did was reduce the town's apportioned percentage of the overall drainage area, and conversely it reduces the costs for the town to the tune of about $35,000 from the report on the 20th of September. I think it's important to note that the conditions of draft approval for the Maple Ridge subdivision contain a condition related to the offsite works as follows: that the owner shall enter in a separate development agreement with the town regarding the design and construction of offsite stormwater and drainage upgrades on Wood Avenue that are necessary to allow the comprehensive servicing of the subdivision. All cost sharing agreements shall be developed on the basis of drainage benefit by area, and final costs shall be developed to the satisfaction of town council. So I think that why that's important is there's some history here with respect to this development. I think the premise always was that Wood Avenue, existing section of Wood Avenue between Armstrong and Marguerite Street, would be improved down the road when the subdivision starts to get built out. And we knew that we would be having to deal with these storm sewer pipes that needed to be installed. And as a result, obviously you're going to be tearing up the road, and there's going to be an opportunity there to improve, to remove the ditches, obviously, but also improve the streetscape, if you will, with curbing and sidewalks. And right now there is no currently any sidewalk down the street. So that's a huge improvement for the municipality kind of as a whole. So with that, considering we already looked at this a couple of weeks ago, through the chair, I'm happy to take any questions at this point in time.
Great, thanks, Director McMahon. I think Councillor Brennan, you're up first. No, okay, sorry. I'm not seeing any comments. Councillor McKenna.
Just wanted to voice my support for staff's recommendation on this, and the additional saving of $35,000 is appreciated. And there's some, it's described as a unique situation, but there was some forethought put into it, as you pointed out. And so I'm supportive of the recommendation from staff.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. We have Councillor Alford, then Councillor Dwyer.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is a complex file, quite complex, but this particular report is asking for an exemption to the procurement bylaw to sole source from Campbell's. For that reason, it does make sense to me that there are efficiencies and economies that can be achieved because it's Campbell's that is actually working on that. So for the purposes of that, I'll have some other comments when we get to the next item. But for purposes of that, I will support staff's recommendation to sole source this.
Thanks, Councillor Alford. Councillor Dwyer, then Mayor Panko.
Yeah, I too have no problem supporting the sole sourcing of this work.
Mayor Panko.
I too will support the staff recommendation.
All right, I think you've got your direction, Director McMahon. Let's move on to 8. I don't know, I guess it's 3 now. Local improvement charge, Maple Ridge subdivision, Wood Avenue, phase 2 report.
Yeah, so again, this was a report that came in front of committee members on the 20th of September. So it definitely does dovetail into the previous report with respect to existing Wood Avenue. So with the change of the drainage areas, basically what it represents is a cost per meter for the local improvement charge is, I'm just looking for the number here quick. It's 5,500 and something. Yeah, $5,699.91 per meter. So that charge would be applied to throughout the 18 lots of what we're calling phase 2. So that's everything south of Armstrong Drive. 11 of those lots belong to the developer, and 7 of those lots are non-developer owned. So we did have a number of consultations with the town's solicitor, Tony Fleming. And like we talked about at the last session on September 20th was the different options that could be available to the town, you know, development charges, act for front-ending agreements. So we know that the town doesn't currently have development charges. A fee or charge bylaw wasn't recommended. Holding symbol, we know that that's not an option at this point in time as those lots are registered. A special service charge wasn't recommended, but what was recommended, and where this council has the affordability, I guess, through the municipal act, is to impose a local improvement charge. So that's kind of the road that staff have went down with this, considering that we feel as though this would be the best option for the town to impose a local improvement charge on those 18 lots. Now we know that 11 of those are owned by the developer, so he's front-ending this work on phase 2, albeit he's looking for, the developer's looking for to recover some of those costs down the road through a local improvement charge. So that's what this report speaks to. I think we talked about it a little bit last time, so I'll open it up to any questions. Is probably the easiest way to go rather than me sitting here talking about it for 15 or 20 minutes. It's through the chair, so.
All right, thanks, Director McMahon. Councillor Dwyer, you're up first.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I've had the opportunity to review your report, Mr. McMahon, and to do some due diligence on kind of exactly what's happening down here, but also to get a better understanding of how the LICs work and are applied within the community. I appreciate that the purpose of this proposal is to recognize that the current developer, Mr. Campbell, is first in the queue, and thus he, as the developer, should bear the responsibility to construct and front the cost for the construction of the road, under the understanding that he will get equitable payback on a per for proportional share of the costs. And in this case, where the issue that I see lies is solely in the allotment of interest being charged on that carrying cost for the loan. In my mind, Mr. Campbell should be entitled to 100% cost recovery on a proportional basis to putting the infrastructure in the ground, which will be of direct benefit to adjacent property owners who paid fair value for those lots when they bought them as unserviced lots for under $5,000. And to me, that's an important point. And I think it was the missing component from our discussion 2 weeks ago. For some reason, I had it in my mind that these lots had recently transferred, that they would be lots that would have been purchased as undevelopable land closer to $45,000, which is what you would see as fair value on those lands today, but they weren't. They were far less than that. And even with the proportional share of infrastructure going into those lots at, I think, upwards of 95,000. Those are still very marketable lots with a profitable index on them. Should those property owners turn around and sell them after paying their cost sharing contribution, or alternatively develop them as service lots with the equity that Mr. Campbell has put into them? So I have no further reservations about the proposed methodology for using the LIC in this case, but I would only support the execution of such if it does indeed represent 100% of the proportional share for recovery by Mr. Campbell. I think it's unfair of the municipality to ask him to upfront that cost and then be out of pocket on the interest that would be owing on that loan that he's going to carry for what we're asking for as up to 10 years.
Yeah, through the chair, if I could. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dwyer. Yeah, so that's certainly something from a staffing level that, you know, we toss that ball around quite a bit through discussions with our treasurer and CAO Morris and myself and other staff as well. And quite frankly, we were a little hesitant, I guess, on going down the road of trying to maybe perhaps suggest a higher interest rate to make the developer whole. We weren't quite sure what the appetite of this committee and council would be to do that. Thinking that maybe perhaps the other property owners would maybe perhaps not feel that was fair to a certain degree. So anyways, we came up with what we feel is a number of not options for those property owners, but a payment schedule that could afford them a little bit of time. If we assume at this point that the bylaw is passed once we issue the notice of intent, that we're looking at affording a 90-day period at zero interest that would afford them some time if they had to go and secure financing in order to pay the full apportioned costs of the local improvement charge. And then we were looking at over, you know, if that 90-day lapsed and they paid it off within a year, then it's at a 2.65% rate. That's a rate I understand currently at the time of this report being drafted that the town has the ability to borrow money at 2.65% over an amortization period of 10 years. So then we felt that going from 1 year to 5 years, the interest would slowly increase. 5 years at 3.8 and 10 years at 5. Maybe perhaps trying to find some compromise in affording the developer, you know, in trying to make them whole in terms of how much they had to borrow in their borrowing capacity. So that's kind of where we came up with that menu items, if you will, of the different percentages. So that's where our heads were going with it, but certainly it's council's discretion or committee's discretion if they wanted to change that at this point. So we're certainly open to a change in recommendation with respect to the interest. So,
Councillor Dwyer, did you have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, I did, if you don't mind. Mr. McMahon, I appreciate the clarity. I think it's obvious that staff have been working hard over the last week to try and find a palatable solution to all parties. I think I can appreciate the concern about an exorbitant interest rate, which there's no doubt 7% is very, very high compared to conventional lending right now. But if the concern around the horseshoe is that it behooves us to keep that interest rate low to those other property holders, then I think that it's only fair that we're the one borrowing and charging the interest at the interest rate we're paying. Alternatively, I think if we're asking the developer to borrow the money, which he's saying can only be done at 7% because this is a high risk development proposal, then we need to pass that along in equal proportion to the property owners. I like the option of the 90 days to secure funding. I think that's fair and reasonable. But I would suggest that after that 90 days, that the interest rate reflect whatever the interest rate on the actual loan is.
Thanks, Councillor Dwyer. So there's a suggestion that we go with matching the rate that the proponent is going to pay. We've got Councillor Alford and then Mayor Panko.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't disagree with Councillor Dwyer's point over how long, or sorry, the interest rate. I've been, and we've had a couple of weeks to chew this over and get more information and think about it. I'm frustrated that Council of the day when Wood Avenue was built was, in my opinion, quite short-sighted, and that previous councils didn't do anything about development charges, but nevertheless, here we are. The developer and the existing Wood Avenue residents will financially benefit from this work. And the town of Smiths Falls will front 59.6%, will pick up that bill, the other taxpayers. I don't think we have, because we don't have development charges and because of drainage going on to someone else's property, I don't think we have much choice but to support the local improvement charge. However, I'm thinking about all the work we've done on planning advisory and what we've done as a council to try and get infill. And now we'll have a brand spanking new development of like 120 single family dwellings, which by all looks and sound and what I can surmise is that they are going to sell like hotcakes, just like everything else in Smiths Falls is selling. But we have 7 lots that have the potential then to be sitting there for 10 years empty. I don't like the thought of that. We have a finite amount of land left for building lots. And it's my understanding that there are only 2 parties involved in the 7 lots. And so I think all we will do, all Mr. Campbell will do, all the town will do is increase the value for those 7 lots. I think it needs to be a shorter period of time, and I am supportive of making that interest rate a bit higher because I don't know how long these individuals have owned these lots, but I think it's been quite some time and it hasn't been developed or built on. And they could sit empty again and leave these brand new buildings sitting beside empty service lots. So I too am of the opinion that I'm not in favor of waiting 10 years to get this out of the way. I do have one other concern because I can't tell which way we're going with this, but I completely understand the developer wanting to recoup the money that he's fronting. But I also understand that the town is going to be administering this and passing whatever monies we get through to the developer. And yet I see nowhere in anything where it says the town will be compensated for potentially 10 years worth of administration on this. Again, we don't have development charges. We can't do anything about that. But again, where the town can get some compensation for all the work that our staff does, then I think we should look into that as well. I'll reserve any other comments I have till a little bit later, but I don't like the 10 years, and I think I agree with Councillor Dwyer. It's not a common occurrence, so it's really nice when it happens. That those interest rates maybe need to be a little bit higher. I don't want to have 7 lots in this new subdivision empty for God only knows how long. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Alford. We have Mayor Panko and then Councillor Brennan.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I agree with the methodology WSP is employed here, and I agree with the outcome. And in this situation, it is a bit of a conundrum. I sympathize to some extent with all the property owners that now face a significant local improvement charge. But the reality is we're asking, I guess, the one developer to front his costs completely. And the other property owners, which may be, I'm not sure, I don't know who they are multiple or one developer who has 10 years or up to 10 years to pay their upfront cost at either a low rate of interest or moderate rate of interest. And to Councillor Alford's point, I guess the longer this remains in place, the longer it takes until all of these charges are recovered and passed on to Mr. Campbell, the developer for the subdivision, the more administrative work there is for the town and the cost of the town to maintain this. So I think we have to be sensitive to that. And in reality, the 7 lots in question could not be developed until servicing was put in place. And I can't imagine a developer, if it's one developer that owns the 7, I'm not sure, really investing in the infrastructure needed to support even 7 lots because of the high upfront cost. Just probably couldn't justify that amount of work for 7 lots. But today, the benefit is there. So we're spending $655,000 roughly to enable all of this to happen. Our cost recovery comes from new taxes on every home that's going to be in this new subdivision. So we have a high interest in ensuring that this subdivision gets enabled and completed as soon as possible, and we recover the cost we're putting up front to enable this to move ahead. So I too agree that a shorter time frame is more appropriate. And as for interest charges, I'm sort of open-minded to relooking at that, to applying a higher rate. I'd even be agreeable to saying provide interest-free for 6 months or a year, even if necessary, but then maybe have a higher interest rate after that point in time. And I don't know what the common practice is elsewhere for local improvement charges. If they're not paid, are they added to the tax roll? I don't know if that's a practice which has been employed. And if so, we know that the interest rate on overdue taxes, I believe, is 1% per month, 12% annually, which adds up much more significantly. So it is a bit of an unusual situation, and I think I'm sensing that we all want to see these lots developed as quickly as possible. We absolutely do not want to see them sitting vacant for a number of years.
Thanks, Mayor Panko. I definitely agree with my colleagues. So I'm hearing a consensus for a shorter period and a higher interest rate. Councillor Brennan, you're next.
Yeah, I agree totally. I mean, this is about fairness to a developer who's investing a lot of money. And in fact, you know, with this, what we're asking him to do is subsidize 7 lots at his cost. And it's not fair that the 7 lots are going to get developed actually at a less cost. You know, it's a question of fairness. I just want to point out though, when the Wood Avenue was developed, that was 40 years ago. And the council of the day had a decision whether they're going to build houses or they're not going to build houses, because there was a issue with the wastewater plant. So they got a special dispensation, as I understand it, from Ministry of Environment. So it was not a mistake of the council 4 years ago. It was a question of development. And now things have changed. And we're going to put an investment in that street, make it more of a complete street other than Marguerite Avenue. But yeah, I agree. I mean, it's got to be a fair deal for the developer here. And I don't know who, as the mayor said, I don't know who owns the other lots. But as far as, you know, if I own one, it'd be like, well, I don't have to do anything, and I get a better interest rate than the guys developing the majority of the lots here. So I think we need to do something to ensure that I mean, if it was doable, you could service all the lots except those 7, but you can't do it that way. So we make sure that this is done fairly for everyone. And I agree with whatever has been said.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Brennan. Councillor McKenna.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, back to my colleagues, Councillor Alford and Councillor Brennan, just help me understand a couple of your comments, if that's okay, Mr. Chair. It was around, is it, and Councillor Brennan may have helped me understand what Councillor Alford was saying, is her concern that the lots wouldn't be developed based on this, and we would sit there with nothing happening. Was that, as Councillor Brennan has pointed out, just because the interest rate is so sweet, they wouldn't need to develop it? Is that, because that notion never occurred to me that someone would sit on a valuable asset and not do anything. So I'm not sure where that notion came from. So through you, if I could understand that might help my decision here tonight. Thank you.
For sure. Councillor Alford, I see your hand up.
Well, I can't speak for Councillor Brennan's, but what my thought was, Councillor McKenna, is that these lots have the potential to be service lots, but if they were purchased as an investment, and I can't speak to how long they've had them, I think in one case quite a while, and I don't know who the individuals are, but this land will only appreciate. If this is an investment rather than a building lot, and I understand one individual owns 6 of the lots, it will only get more valuable as the years go by. So if this is an investment, they could potentially sit and pay, slowly down for the next 10 years. The lots are only going to get more expensive and more valuable.
Councillor McKenna.
So, okay, I see where you're coming from with that. That helps me with your thinking. My thinking is the market is hot. The market will be hot for the short term, like 1 or 2, 3 years. We don't know. So I don't see them sitting. I have no crystal ball either, but I don't see them. I don't want to make a decision based on any concern that there will be underdevelopment here. I see a robust development plan throughout the whole subdivision. So I'm in. I think the chair pointed that there was a consensus building, and I'm on that consensus train with the rest of my colleagues. Perhaps a shorter time period. Mayor Panko made an interesting, maybe 1 year interest free, and then we do it over 5 years. So something like that, I would be supportive of. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Councillor Allen, and then back to Mayor Panko.
Yeah, no, I agree with my colleagues as well. And I guess I would say, looking around the development that we have now in our town, we have a lot of it going on, but most of it is townhouses and smaller homes, smaller places to live. To me, this is a unique subdivision that's going to be very sought after. There are many people who want lawns and a property and a lot, and in a subdivision where you have the same kinds of homes around you. I think these properties will sell fast. And so, like my colleagues, I think we need to make sure that that's going to happen.
Thanks, Councillor Allen. Mayor Panko.
I guess what it comes down to for me in this situation, it's a matter of one property owner who owns, let's say, the majority of the lots, upfronting his cost, and the other property owners who own a minority portion of the lots, but at the same development opportunities, once the work is completed, getting a payback period for their upfront costs. And so I think from a parity standpoint, I think we may not be complete parity. I think we need to bring that payment schedule commitment closer together to be fair.
Right, so I'm hearing a consensus for a shorter term. Could we have a straw vote over a 5-year term? That seems to be the number that's floating around. Does anybody have another one to suggest? Councillor McKenna.
Well, I would ask Director McMahon and CEO Morris, is that enough information for you to come back? I guess we don't want to keep coming back with this. But is that, there may be some intricacies to this kind of proposal that you would want to work on for a little bit and then come back, or is that enough direction? 5 years, narrow the gap, and council will be happy with that?
CEO Morris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think if the consensus is 5, we can build a model based on 5 years. We will need direction on 2 items. The mayor's suggestion of the first year interest free, we seek your direction on that portion. And secondly, the rate of interest that you feel comfortable imposing.
Great, thanks, CEO Morris. So we'll, Councillor Brennan, you're next.
Yeah, I'm just looking, I think your worship, you hit it on the head. We need some parity here. I mean, someone's developing the majority of the lots at his cost, at their cost. And the minority of the properties have 5 years to figure out what when they're going to pay. So I think we have to find some sort of fairness here, and because my belief is once those lots are serviced, they're going to be fairly marketable, and the price will be a lot more than what the cost of servicing them are. And it is a unique situation, but I think we need to find some parity between both of these parties that we're dealing with. And I don't know that 5 years is going to, and within a 1 year interest free period is finding parity. I'm not sure of that.
Okay. So Councillor Brennan, just to clarify, are you saying a shorter term or for staff to come back?
I would prefer to see a shorter term with a higher interest rate.
Okay. Councillor Alford?
Yeah, I don't mind the 90 days because everybody's got to get notified properly and get their heads around it. After that, I'm not even sure about 5 years, 1 to 3, because either the lots will be sold to somebody or they will be developed by the owners. I don't know that we have to wait that long. It's not my, I'm not a very patient person, as some of you may know. So I don't see why we can't incentivize the owners, the minority owners, to get busy.
All right, Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. Yeah, it must be full moon or twilight zone, because I agree with Councillor Alford again. I mean, to me, the only equitable interest rate is the full interest rate of whatever the loan is occurring. So if it's 7% by the developer, then that's what the interest rate should be. If the town's going to take it at something less, then that's what the interest rate should be. The term, I don't think, is up for us to decide. I think that's up for discussion between staff and the developer, because ultimately it's the developer who's carrying the capacity of the loan in this case. If we were discussing about the town taking out the loan, then I think there's reason for us to debate how long of a term we're going to take. But I don't think that's for us to decide. CEO Morris, you did have another question that you needed direction on. It was the interest rate, the term, and what was
just those 2.
just those 2? Oh, okay. Well, that's my feedback then.
Okay, so I guess my question to staff is, do we need to have the interest rate and the term set before we can do the notice of intent, or we do? So
yes. Yeah, Mr. Chair, a requirement within the regulation is to specify a number of different elements, and the term and interest rate are 2 of them.
All right. Next question from me is, Councillor Dwyer suggested we make the interest rate based on what the developer's lending at, and Councillor Alford suggested some kind of cost recovery. Is it possible for us to charge an extra percentage to account for all the administration that goes into this on the interest rate?
The Act does provide flexibility for the municipality to cover all reasonable administrative costs. and interest costs. So yes, that can be done. But I would just caution council on the number that we might arrive at could start to get high.
Can you elaborate, please?
Well, I don't think the administrative costs are going to be exorbitant. It'll depend on the term, of course. So if we had direction to do a 3 or a 5 year, we can predict what the administrative costs are, and I would suggest we only recover what we know will be an administrative cost. So we can calculate that if we get direction on a term. In terms of the interest rate, my suggestion would be to get proof or confirmation from the developer of what his rates are, and that would be the rate that you would ideally charge. But I would strongly encourage some evidence of, I've heard a lot of numbers from 5 to 8. Clearly, it needs to be a very succinct number based on some evidence.
Great, thanks, CEO Morris. So I'm hearing consensus to go back to the developer, figure out a term, figure out an interest rate, and look into if we can charge a premium on it to cover our costs. Mayor Panko, then Councillor Dwyer.
Yeah, I mean, we may hash this around again in a future date, but my sense, or if I can make a suggestion for this evening, that we provide a 90-day window with no interest, after which point in time interest would be applied. And I think a fair rate would be 0.5% per month, which would be 6% annualized. It's probably, it's not what we charge for overdue taxes. That would be double that amount. It would be probably a reasonable amount for a developer to finance a project at. And I think I believe it's fair. And I would suggest a 3-year term. So we're looking for terms, we're looking for rate, we're trying to bring this to conclusion. That would be my suggestion.
All right, thanks, Mayor Panko. Councillor Dwyer, then Councillor McKenna.
Thanks. Sorry, I'm really bad with numbers. Sean, can you just give me that interest rate again? What was the interest rate?
0.5% per month after the 90 days, no interest. So that works out to 6% annualized.
Okay. Okay. I don't mind that approach, actually. And I agree. I think the 90-day window, I'm hoping nobody disagrees with that, and we can just all agree that that's the wise thing to do. My question actually pertained more to CEO Morris's comments about exorbitant administrative charges that would be levied on this. What sort of administration charges are you foreseeing being necessary on this that would lead to an exorbitant charge over 10 years?
So through the chair, I wasn't suggesting the administrative charge would be exorbitant. If you add more to the developer's interest rate, that number could start to climb.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thanks for clarifying. I thought you meant that the fee that we would be charging and levying as a municipality on top of the loan payment was going to be exorbitant. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can continue that thought. So we can calculate if 3 years is the term, we can calculate the cost for staff to collect the money, remit it, all the work that we've done so far. So we can come up with the administrative fee to put on top of the 0.5% per month, if that's council's direction.
CEO Morris, Councillor McKenna.
So I think Mayor Panko's suggestion is getting us really close to making a decision tonight. The only outstanding and complicating factor for me is this administration charge. We heard earlier that we'll be collecting property taxes, hopefully for hundreds of years after this on this property. And the work that would go into trying to sometimes collect an administrative charge and validate it for the little you get back. Sometimes, is this really worth it? Could we clean up this decision tonight and drop that requirement and go back to what the mayor suggested as a as a good compromise for this evening.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. I think, can we have a straw vote on the 90-day no interest term? Okay, so that's passed. Can we have a straw vote on the 3-year total term? That's passed. So the last thing now is the interest rate. Mayor Panko, did you have your hand up for that one?
Well, just I think it's maybe difficult to determine administrative cost when we don't know how many may or may not pay what portion of the LIC over what period of time. I mean, if someone pays all up front, the administrative charge per lot is going to be reduced. So I would say over a 3-year period, we can absorb that. And I think we have a 0.5% monthly interest rate. That would probably help us cover some of our administrative costs. So I'd be fine proceeding with no administrative cost on top of that.
Great. So we've got 0.5% and that's 6% per annum. Everybody will do a straw vote on that then. All those in favor? Great. So we have consensus. I think now, Director McMahon, we have enough to pass the motion of intent tonight. Is that correct? Or is there anything else you need from us?
I believe we do. However, I made a note here that we would go back to the developer to substantiate the percentage of the loan. Is that something council is still wanting myself and CAO Mars to do? And maybe forgo the 6% because we don't know that that's the actual number at this point in time? Or I guess that's my question back through the chair.
Councillor Brennan?
I agree with that. That's just doing due diligence and in the interest of fairness too. So that's a great suggestion.
Mayor Panko?
The only thing that could be variable, right? And what he may be borrowing at today might be prime +2, prime +3. As prime changes, that rate is going to change. So it's quite probable over a 3-year term, it's not going to be the same. And I would suggest if it's considering the need for liquidity on this, the ability to probably pay off a loan sooner if he receives the LIC funds up front, it would not be a fixed term due to a penalty if it was paid early. So, I mean, I appreciate what's being said, but I'm not sure it's necessarily that relevant because it's a matter of we're trying to, I guess, create parity, and ultimate parity wouldn't be possible unless it was all paid up front and the current developer, Mr. Campbell, was able to avoid all financing costs in the next 90 days. So no matter what, we won't have perfect parity, but I think a 0.5 per month probably gets us close. But it's up to committee.
Councillor Dwyer, then Councillor Alford.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the ultimate recommendation from staff tonight. So Malcolm, your recommendation is simply to go through the noticing procedure, which has to include some of those details, including term and interest rate and all that good stuff. But there is still an opportunity for consultation and negotiation once the notice goes out, and council will have an opportunity after hearing from all of the parties, particularly Mr. Campbell, to adjust as necessary. Is that correct?
Through the chair. So the process is to issue the notice of intent to pass a bylaw.
Yeah.
So you're right, we need to divulge all the elements of what will be in the bylaw. There really is there is no opportunity for negotiation, but there is an opportunity for affected landowners to petition against or petition for the bylaw. So there are certain criteria that has to be met for that petition to be a legitimate petition. Over 50% of the landowners have to agree to the petition. So there is a process. So once council provides direction, we can start. We will issue the letter, the notice of intent, and then we'll come back after 30 days and let you know what the outcome of that 30-day period was. But there's really at that point, there's I suppose council could reconsider the term or the rate before you pass the bylaw. So while not a negotiation, there is an opportunity to change things or tweak things before you actually pass the bylaw, which puts this into motion.
Thanks, CEO Morris, Councillor Dwyer, Councillor Alford.
Yeah, I think let's keep this reasonably simple. I think Sean's made the case for the 0.5 per month annualized, given that there are some things that Mr. Campbell will have to do with his financing that is really none of our business. So I think we should go with the 90 days free, 3 years, and 5% per month. And we're clean and clear, and staff have their direction. We can move on with the bylaw. We have some opportunity, or there is an opportunity for us to change that. But at this point, I think clarity for the landowners will be important too. No, there shouldn't be any confusion as to what council's suggesting.
Great. So I'm seeing nodding heads. So we'll do one last straw vote to confirm the 90-day no interest period, 3-year term, and a 0.5% per month interest rate. All those in favor? Great. So we've got consensus. So we will pass, or that'll come up at tonight's council meeting, I believe. Clerk Bennett, did you have a comment?
No, I'm just going to confirm there's a motion on tonight's council meeting, so that will come forward.
Excellent. All right. So I believe that takes us to item 9, adjournment. Nope. What am I missing here? Oh, Beckwith Street, the big one. Director McMahon, you're up for 3 for 3 tonight.
Yeah, this is the exciting one I was happy to speak to this evening. So yeah, so thank you. So through the chair, I'll present this report quickly. I guess in a nutshell, you know, very different than Beckwith Street Phase 1 in the fact that we had 1 tender submission. This time we were afforded 7, so that's really, really good. You'll note on page 2 of the report the different contractors that bid the work. It was really, really good from a staffing perspective. You know, I work in this business, and I've worked in this business all my career with capital reconstruction projects. And it's really nice to see, with the exception of AWD Contracting Limited, I consider that a flyer at 11 million plus. The other 6 were really, really close in nature with respect to costing, which tells me that it really was a competitive bidding process, and all those prices seem reasonable upon review, and they're all very close. So that tells me the contractors are hungry for this work, and that's really nice from a staffing perspective to see. So the recommendation that we have in front of council this evening is to award the contract, obviously, to the low bidder, being Thomas Cavanaugh Construction, in the amount of 4.72 million, including HST. Perhaps maybe we'll just talk quickly about the funding rationale for this project. So with a couple of items, we know that we have the tender construction costs, and then there's some contracted min costs through Morrison Hirschfield, as well as for construction inspections, contingency allowance, additional design work and survey, street furniture, which wasn't included in the scope of work, for a subtotal of about $5 million, and then our 1.76% net HST to the tune of about 5.128 million. So 733,000 and change of that is coming from the capital reserve funding for water wastewater. Federal gas tax is supporting this project to the tune of about 1.156 million. Connecting links funding 1.895, OCIF formula-based funding 238,000 and change, long-term debt 200,000, for a total funding of 4.2. So that leaves us a little bit short to the tune of about 905,000. But as I understand it, it's less of a shortfall than what was presented back in the summer through the CIO's office. So that's really a good thing, and I think that's representative of the competitive bid process that we had and the prices that we're seeing coming in for this work. Yeah, so the estimated shortfall figure of 905,000 reflects the pre-budget approval that we're looking for from this committee to get it in front of council for this project to proceed. That'll be supported from the tax supported capital reserve. And yeah, no, I think that's pretty well it. This one's pretty straightforward. Contract award. Obviously through the chair and the committee members, we could sit here and deliberate this, but I think from a staffing perspective, I think we got some really, really good pricing. We have a contractor that's well known in the area. They have the resources and the resources and the equipment. I mean, they're a heavy civil contractor down in the Ottawa area. They have a pretty significant presence in Smith Falls right now with works that are going on through some of the developments that we were just previously talking about. So from my perspective, I'm more than comfortable awarding this to Kavanaugh and recommending that council approve this. So with that, I'll take any questions through the chair.
Thanks. We've got Councillor Alfred, then Councillor Brennan, was that your hand? Okay, then Councillor Allen.
I have absolutely no reservation about supporting staff's recommendation. In our town's vernacular, let's get her done.
Councillor Allen.
The only question I had, Paul, was around the two parts of the street are going to be identical. And I know that we've got street lighting already in place. We have things already in place. And my hope would be that when you drive through the whole street, it won't seem like two different sections. It will seem like just the same street with the same treatments. That's great.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. It'll have the same feel, if you will, coming right from the bridge at the south end,
Right.
all the way up to the completion of this project.
We're looking forward to that. That's great.
Mayor Panko.
Just 2 thumbs up. The icon doesn't allow for 2, so use my own hands.
Great. No, this is great. It's almost $500,000 less than what we were expecting. It's 64% potentially funded by grants. And one thing I really appreciated was James Spook's review of the tenders. It was really well done. And I think if that's any indication of what we're going to get out of them during the project management and contract administration phase, we're in very good hands. So excited to see this move forward very soon. So with that, I think, is that coming to council tonight or at the next meeting? CO Morris.
Yeah, this is slated to come forward next week at a special council meeting. If I could, Mr. Chair, there's just 2 items I would like to augment the discussion by saying that the award and the budget that we presented does not include the gateway feature. Clearly, we need direction on the gateway feature, so that will be in addition to the costs that we've outlined this evening. The other item I would add is that we have applied for funding for up to 750,000. So we have not received confirmation either positively or negatively on that application. But once we do, we'll certainly advise committee. So there is potential for the cost of this project to the local taxpayer to go down even further.
Thank you, Theo Morris. Seeing no further comments, I think now we're ready for item 9, adjournment. Moved by Councillor Allen, seconded by Councillor Alfred, that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 7:13 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. All those in favor? That is carried. So we'll take a quick break and then come back for our meeting of council.
How was your weekend away, Lorraine? Oh, you're muted.
No, it was great, especially Picton Island. We went on that, haven't been there in, well, for years and years, and it's becoming Niagara on the Lake.
Yes.
Close to home, you know, it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
really nice place. Yeah.
A
Nice.
little rainy, I guess, but
Well, it was rainy. Like we were hoping to hike. We didn't, but it was okay with me. Having a rest, just having a glass of wine and resting was fine.
yes, you need that too. Good.
Yeah.
So it appears that everything is covered except for 7.3. I'm just texting Councillor Alfred if she'll do confirm proceedings, and adjournment. I have with Councillor McKenna if he's supportive of that.
I'm just doing a hard copy for myself here.
I'm fine with adjournment. Thank you, Nadine.
Perfect.
Most important job, Peter.
And I
Yeah.
will just get Councillor Alfred if she's okay to do confirm proceedings.
And will someone second my 8.1?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay,
Someone second my 7.2. Lorraine, thank you.
White to Lorraine, thank you.
Councillor Alfred, would you be okay doing confirm proceedings 7.3? Oh, you're muted.
Said, oh yeah, I'll take the basket course.
You got a second over 7.3?
I'll do Nikki.
Right.
I'll tell her as soon as she comes.
Okay.
Best part about wireless headphones is I can run all around the house and I can still hear all of you.
Oh, and with your hair, we can't tell you've got wireless headphones on.
I know. They're well hidden.
So I put you down to proceed to, you know.
Yeah, I got it. You're good.
7.1, Chris, you need a seconder?
I'll do that, Chris,
Wendy?
if you want.
just wanted to thank the chair of the COW. He did a great job tonight getting us through that.
Yeah, good job.
Well done.
I owe people a beer. It's after 7.
I got hockey at 9. I gotta be able to get home and get food. 8.2, Nikki, the seconder.
Christopher.
Christopher, okay.
Sorry, I don't even know what it is. What is it?
Town Square.
Oh, Chris, are you supporting that? No. Okay. Jay will do it.
Okay.
Jay will do it.
And the minutes, Nikki, you need a seconder for the minutes. How about Chris there?
Chris will do that one.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've got everything in order now. Okay. Well, adjournment seconded by. Is he seconded? Okay, Jay. Jay will second the adjournment. Peter, okay.
Are we doing full council reports tonight or are we skipping that?
I got one I have to do. I have to do it.
Okay, I'll throw it out there. Let me know how you guys want to proceed.
We've got council next week too, right?
Do we? I
Special
don't think we do.
Just special.
Special counsel for the motion with respect to Echo Street will be on next week's agenda.
Is the cow agenda going to be lighter?
No, I think there's a few reports coming down the pipe. So it's right now we just have the one motion on the council agenda.
Okay.
We can.
I have to do too, Sean. I have to.
Okay, I'll respect your individual judgment. Okay.
Okay, so when you're
Nadine,
ready to start. Yep, whenever you're ready.
No announcements, eh?
No.
From you? Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Let's
so
roll.
Mayor Panko, I'm going to call you in 3, 2, 1, and we're live.
Welcome back to this regular meeting of Smith Falls Town Council for Monday, October 4th. We have all members of council present this evening. I have no announcements today. I'll ask for disclosure of monetary interest. I see none. We have no delegations. Adoption of minutes. We'll go right to our business. Is a Councillor Dwyer, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that the minutes of September 20th, 2021 council meeting be approved as circulated.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Dwyer, seconded by Councillor McGuire, that the minutes of the September 20th, 2021 council meetings be approved as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Reports. I understand we have a few reports this evening. Yes, Councillor Walford.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be brief. I do have to report on the DBA. They've a number of things in the works, but most recently the Girls' Night Out was a success. I think any of the 30 merchants that participated would say that the same. There were just short of 60 participants this year, which is down considerably since 2019, but it was a terrible night. So I give credit to all the ladies that were out shopping, including our my co-counsel, Mrs. Allen. I do want to say that even with only 60 participants, our calculations would lead us to think that there was approximately $6,000 injected into our downtown businesses in the period of 4 hours, which is just phenomenal when you think it was a terrible night. So next year we can look forward to even more. The Great Excavate Phase 2 from the DBA's perspective is we're going to have our first meeting about that in 2 weeks. And the DBA is also preparing for its annual general meeting, which will be in likely October, could be November. We have to notify 10 days in advance. I also wanted to say that I attended along with Councillor McKenna and Mayor Panko the Memorial for Every Child Matters that was held last Friday. It was incredibly touching and thought-provoking to listen to the stories of our Indigenous community members. And I am so grateful to the Race and Discrimination Task Force members for organizing it. It was extremely moving. And I think if we're going to continue with that, the stories that are being told now and that the rest of us are listening to bode well, I hope, for how our Indigenous community feels about themselves and how we feel about our Indigenous community. So I do thank the Race and Discrimination Task Force for giving me personally that experience. That's all, Your Worship.
Thank you. Additional reports? I'll do a couple of brief ones myself. The Housing Advisory Committee met last week. A number of sort of, I guess, active files there that will be coming to Committee of the Whole in the future for suggestion and potentially adoption. On October 1st, the Housing Advisory Committee held a tenants rights workshop, which with Linda Tranter from the Legal Clinic, say was an extremely informative afternoon. And coincidentally, the day prior to that, I received calls from, I guess, contact from 2 different people facing what we would call renovations. Altogether, there's 9 units, at least 10 people who received notification that they will be evicted from their homes in January due to proposed renovations, and certainly the session on Friday helped some of these tenants understand what their rights are in these situations. So well attended, and it will be available on social media. Understanding not all tenants have a chance to tune in during that period of time, but it is available on the town website and Facebook pages. And Councillor Alford's point, our event Friday evening, our Active Reconciliation, Every Child Matters. Again, gratitude to members of the task force who helped organize that, and the volunteers who helped put it together, and the town staff who enabled things to happen. So it was a very heart-touching event, and something I believe we will continue on with on an annual basis. And that's I'll leave it at that for tonight. Any further reports? Seeing none, we'll go right into bylaws. Councillor McGuire, you have the first bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the Wood Avenue storm and roadway elements be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, second by Councillor Alford, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the Wood Avenue storm and roadway elements be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McGuire?
So this is to award the work to Campbell's Trucking Incorporated. Since we're cost sharing with Campbell's Trucking, it makes sense that they're going to do this for a great value because there's an incentive to them to do so. It's two-part with the local improvement charge that's coming up and that we discussed tonight at the Committee of the Whole. The town cost is $655,251.36, which is about 59.6% of the cost. And this has been determined after a second review from Director McMunn in the last month or so. So great work on this file from Director Dunlop to Director McMunn and CAO Morris, and exciting to see this moving forward tonight.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have a third reading, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Alford that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the Wood Avenue storm and roadway elements be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10262-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McGuire, second by Councillor Alford, the bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the Wood Avenue storm and roadway elements be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10262-2021. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Councillor Brennan, you have the next bylaw.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the hardscape work in the town square be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the hardscape work in the town square be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Brennan?
Yes, this is an exemption to the procurement bylaw. This work was tendered out and actually no bids were received on September 16th. And we have secured some funding through the federal government for this, but our part of it needs to be completed to get an agreement. The work needs to be done by December 31st of this year. So we're going to put out a request for quotes for the work and get that work done.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have a third reading, please?
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the hardscape work in the town square be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10263-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Brennan, second by Councillor Allen, that a bylaw to authorize an exemption to procurement bylaw 7850-2004 respecting the hardscape work in the town square be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10263-2021. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And our final bylaw is with Councillor Alford, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dwyer, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings on the 9th and 20th days of September 2021 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, seconded by Councillor Dwyer, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings on the 9th and 20th days of September 2021 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? It's carried. Discussion.
This is just a legal maneuver, but this is a legal requirement that we confirm our proceedings.
Okay, thank you. Third reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dwyer, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings on the 9th and 20th days of September 2021 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10264-2021.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Alford, second by Councillor Dwyer, that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meetings on the 9th and 20th days of September 2021 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10264-2021. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. That's it for our bylaws. First motion is with Councillor McKenna, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan. That council of the corporation of the town of Smith Falls direct staff to issue a notice of intent to pass a bylaw with respect to a proposed local improvement charge to be applied to non-developer owned building lots, fronting and benefiting from services of the Phase 2 Wood Avenue extension within the Maple Ridge subdivision. And further, that council endorse a menu of payment options to recover the non-developer landowner contributions towards the cost of providing municipal services on the Phase 2 Wood Avenue extension.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McKenna.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I really encourage the public who weren't able to listen in on the discussion that council just had in the COW meeting. Council was armed with excellent documentation from our staff and recommendations. We had a very robust discussion, and the long and the short of it is there's approximately 18 lots that will benefit from the extension of services into the Maple Ridge subdivision. However, they already existed, and so the developer is going to put the water and sewer and lighting, etc., right by those lots. They stand to benefit from that. And in turn, the developer who will be paying for this along is entitled to be reimbursed at a fair compensation for doing that work. Council have looked at this over the last couple of months. As I said, we had a very robust discussion tonight, really thoughtful comments from my colleagues. And in the end, it works out to about $5,600 a meter for every meter of land or that the lot is taking up, that the lot owner will be apportioned a fair cost of covering that. It'll work out to about, in total, $1.8 million. How they pay that back, we discussed in detail, will be done, we expect, over a 3-year period or sooner. There'll be a modest interest rate charged, and that money the town will collect on behalf of the developer, and that will be given back to the developer for upfronting all of those costs. So we debated this. As I said, my colleague said it was a very thoughtful and intelligent conversation, and I encourage the public to go back and look at it again if they have any questions. And so I'm really pleased, as is Councillor Brennan, to be putting this motion forward tonight.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Brennan. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls directs staff to issue a notice of intent to pass a bylaw with respect to a proposed local improvement charge to be applied to non-developer owned building lots fronting and benefiting from servicing of the Phase 2 Wood Avenue extension within the Maple Ridge subdivision. And further, that council endorse a menu of payment options to recover the non-developer to landowner contributions toward the cost of providing municipal services on the Phase 2 Wood Avenue extension. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Final motion is with Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls approved the draft detailed final design for the town square layout and bandstand as provided in report 2021-133. And further, the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls directs staff to consult with the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 95 respecting the possible relocation of the cenotaph, being that which is located at the intersection of Elmsley Street and Beckwith Street, should the need arise resulting from the construction of a gateway feature.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Dwyer.
Thank you. This has been a much discussed project over our term of council. We are finally nearing the point of being at tender ready detailed design drawings. And I believe with the direction that we provided to staff for some amendments to the preliminary design, we will be ready to move forward with that. In quick order, we're thrilled that this project is coming to fruition. You will already see some work taking place down there. The butterfly gardens that were produced by Real are in and thriving. and nicely complement the work that will be coming in the park to complete the rest of the design. The only contingent factor has been discussions pertaining to the cenotaph that's located on the other side of the library, and whether or not it is more appropriate or even necessary to relocate that into the town square park in a harmonized design with the rest of the park. So we have directed staff to engage in preliminary discussions with the Legion about the appropriateness of that, and the necessity pending final detailed design on the intersection and a gateway feature for the intersection into downtown.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? Moved by Councillor Dwyer, second by Councillor Brennan. The Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls approved the draft detailed final design for the town square layout and bandstand as provided in report 2021-133. And for the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smiths Falls, direct staff to consult with the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 95 respecting the possible relocation of the cenotaph located at the intersection of Elmwood Street and Beckwith Street, should the need arise resulting from the construction of a gateway feature. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Requires your announcements. Yes, Councillor Alford, and then Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Worship. Again, I'll try to make this brief, but for the past couple of years, there's been a collaboration between several faith-based and some organizations and individuals have been taking place surrounding the establishment of a community food hub in Smiths Falls. And the need has never been more evident for it than during the pandemic. We hope that something like a community food hub will foster a healthy and more connected community by improving access to nutritious food, improve food skills and food security, with programming that brings people together to grow and cook and share and advocate for a healthier, stronger, and more inclusive community. To that end, there is another meeting this week of the collective of those individuals and organizations I spoke of to work towards bringing that model to Smiths Falls. And the executive director of Lanark County's The Table in Perth, Ramsey Hart, has had the experience already establishing the one there and has been very involved and supportive of this collaboration or collective. And while there are challenges, including finding space and finding funding, we are looking for something with regard to space in the, hopefully near or close to the Dower in the downtown core. And I think it would be very helpful after all these discussions over the past 2 years to have Mr. Hart come to our council as a delegation to help inform our community and ourselves about what is possible and what changes would need to be made in terms of how we are dealing with food security. And so I ask for support from our colleagues to ask staff to approach Mr. Hart to come.
Thank you. Further comments, Councillor McKenna?
I like the notion of Mr. Hart coming. He and his board have been have taken a big picture view of Lanark County, including Smiths Falls, to see how they could spread the good work they're doing. And I think council and members of the public would benefit from inviting him as a delegation at a future COW.
Thank you. Have we got support across the board for a delegation from Mr. Hart? Just, I guess, thumbs up. Okay, thank you. So staff will look out for that. Councillor McKenna, do you have another comment?
Just to let you know, let the public know that Lanark Leeds Granville District Health Unit is going to receive an award tomorrow from the United Way East, our health unit, along with the 3 other health units in Eastern Ontario that are under the auspices of United Way, are going to receive the Community Builders Award for their phenomenal work over the last 1.5 years on the COVID file. So I just wanted to congratulate Dr. Stewart, her team, and all of the municipalities and the community partners that help mitigate the impacts of this deadly pandemic. So they're going to be recognized tomorrow, and I'm excited for them.
Great. Thank you for sharing that news. If there's nothing further, Councillor McKenna, you have the motion for adjournment.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Brennan, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 7:40 and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor McKenna, second by Councillor Brennan. This council adjourns proceedings at 7:40 p.m. and stands so adjourned to the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor?
We didn't have a question. There was no question.
Oh,
I got one.
okay.
How did Brooke do in the tournament this weekend?
Brooke finished second.
That's right.
Tied for second with, I think, 3 other.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
I did that off the top of my head just to get one in there.
Okay. Thanks, Jay. Okay. Good night, everyone.